Hi, and welcome to the Bruce Channel. I'm Bruce, and I suppose we must start with the shooting in the Capitol this week. Fortunately, the loss of life isn't large in numbers, but it is a further loss of our humanity. And it could have been so much worse than it was. An Illinois man, I never mentioned their names, but he began shooting at Republican members of Congress while they were practicing for the annual charity baseball game. I said fortunately, I really meant fortuitously, that is, lucky. And that the House Majority Whip, Steve Scalise, he was there, and he was the most severely wounded, but as of this moment, as I record this, he remains in critical condition. But because he's in leadership, majority leader, minority leader, whip, positions like that, they have security details, not as elaborate as that which the Secret Service provides for the president, but they nevertheless all have a security detail, and because they were there, the shooter went down and later died, but they were there. We later learned that the shooter was apparently a liberal, and thus he went after the conservative lawmakers. His politics isn't the issue, it's our declining respect for each other. Or, as I sometimes am prone to say, I think it's alternately the I'm right and you're wrong arrogance that is on the rise. No side is without haters. The little bastard who 2 years ago shot up the black church in South Carolina, he had a right-wing point of view. I thought NBC's Chuck Todd said it best. He said, both sides, or actually he said, all of us are guilty of creating and allowing a toxic stew. He said we call out toxic behavior when it's from those with whom we disagree, and that's true. But we don't call it out if it's from a source we do agree with. And he said the media doesn't always call it out either, and they should, and I tend to think that he's right. He further went on to say that, when someone we disagree with makes a point that's toxic, we always come back and say, oh yeah? Well, what about? All sides have shown that. He said that whataboutism is the problem. I think he's right. And it doesn't matter which side you're on, but, can't we keep the discussion civil? All right, I suppose there is no way to not mention the fire. By now you know that the Grenfell Tower fire in London, they won't have a final death toll for a long time, but it was terrible. Apparently started just after midnight on the 4th floor and engulfed the entire 24-story tower in just minutes. And part of the reason that it went so fast is that the cladding, stateside we call that siding, but the cladding was a plastic-like substance, very, very toxic and a fuel. And it was recently renovated with that stuff. And I guess it helped the building look better. It was thought to be a good insulator. But it acted as an accelerant, making it worse. The building was built in 1974. Built today, the construction code would have mandated a sprinkler system. But retrofitting older buildings isn't mandated. Making it still worse, the alarm system wasn't very loud. And making it still worse, residents were told, it was in the instructions, the policy, in case of fire, stay inside. The doors were thought to be able to resist a fire long enough for firefighters to be able to put it out. So most of those that did get out lost everything. Doesn't matter. There was no time. Clothes, computers, money, photographs, family heirlooms, everything went up. Almost immediately, churches, mosques, temples, clubs, they offered to house and feed and collect stuff for the victims, and the response has been very generous. Some organizations posted no longer accepting donations because they ran out of space. I doubt very much sending shoes from this side of the Atlantic is practical, but there's always the Red Cross. The building is going to have to come down. There's even fear that it will collapse before it can be safely brought down. And the people, that do control demolitions, this is working without a net. When they usually do it, they're working with blueprints. They know where the load-bearing points are. But here, the building doesn't resemble what the blueprints are. So, I don't know when this picture was taken. On the other hand, this one, given that it appears to have a construction fence around it, that may have been taken while those renovations were being put in place. Viewing the building from a Google Earth shot, viewed from space, you can see these homes are going to be in jeopardy. And by the way, if we zoom out a little bit, just over here is the Notting Hill neighborhood. So One can easily imagine the residents there, it's after midnight, they were going to bed, they were thinking about getting up in the morning, going to work. I have on occasion quoted Robert Herrick's words before, gather ye rosebuds while you may, because it's true, you never know what tomorrow brings. You don't even know if there will be a tomorrow. All right, let me tell you a story. We have an amazing story developing here. No one's been on trial, no one's even arrested. But the story that is alleged, I'm not even saying this is a good television story, but the warrant that was unsealed last week revealed some more details about this story. So, some background. All right, Greensboro is here. It is in the middle of Guilford County. By the way, trivia. You know the Mel Gibson movie, The Patriot? At the end, there's the big battle. That battle is the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. And those revolutionary forces were led by General Nathanael Greene. And although they dropped the last E, Greensboro is named for him. All right. North of Guilford County is Rockingham County. And if you were a stock car racing fan, you might think of the old Rockingham racetrack. You might think it's there, but it's not. The racetrack is much farther to the south. All right. Rockingham County has several cities and towns, not big cities, but several of them. There's 4 high schools. East of Rockingham County is Caswell County, and east of Caswell County is Person County, and Caswell and Person counties are both pretty darn rural. Each county has just 1 high school. So, Rockingham County has a courthouse, it's got a prosecutor, full staff, but the more rural Caswell and Person counties have 1 prosecutor who serves both. All right, so this whole thing, this investigation, followed a whistleblower's tip. The whistleblower, by the way, was then fired by one of the prosecutors. See, the 2 prosecutors apparently hired each other's wife to full-time positions that paid pretty well, but they rarely, if ever, showed up. One of the wives was attending nursing school. And they began this investigation almost a year ago, and there have been drips and drops coming out, but it really came out fully in February. And shortly after that, both prosecutors resigned, and again, they just unsealed the warrants, and it details some of how they were investigating. FBI agent, State Bureau of Investigation. They watched the wife at school. Yeah, she's here. And apparently, she had to take an end of the course algebra test. She didn't feel confident, so someone else took it. It's quite a story.
Hey, let me tell you about my book, Shrink. For most of my adult life, I weighed a little over 100 pounds. Not much more than in this picture taken when I was about 17 and considering becoming a jockey. But as is often true, once I crossed into my 40s, extra weight came and it stayed. For years I tried to lose, instead gained, and ended up 153 pounds. And I'm embarrassed to show you this video. Then I learned that it isn't about calories and exercise, but instead it's about what you eat. You might say, sure, ice cream makes you fat. But there were surprises, things like orange juice not being such a wise choice if you're trying to lose weight. So I just made some basic changes to what I ate, not how much, and the weight just fell off. Now, nearly 3 years later, it is still off. And don't misunderstand, I'm eating foods I like, not bamboo shoots. Friends ask me how I did it so often, I put it in a book. It's available as an ebook for all platforms, and the print edition is available at barnesandnoble.com and amazon.com. Hey, you can shrink too.
All right, welcome back. If you'd like, you can write to us at thebrucechannel@yahoo.com, and of course you can watch all of our previous shows at either our Facebook page or at tinyurl.com/brucechannel. All right, so now I have not watched the Netflix series 13 Reasons Why. I know that it's not a monster hit, but I think instead it's what's called a sleeper hit. I know, too, that we used the word toxic in a previous portion of today's show, but I know that there is a greater toxicity poisoning the group think, the group that is teenage girls, ever before. Body shaming, bullying, and for all the nice stuff that social media provides, an opportunity for more voices to be heard worldwide, therefore a more democratic process, small d, it's still not always a good thing. Social media can be weaponized, so teenage suicide is on the rise. If you've got teenage kids or grandkids, you may want to do some research on the topic. And one way, if you Google On Point, WBUR, and 13 Reasons Why. You'll be able to go to the website and listen to, or maybe read a transcript, listen to an archived edition of the show which aired on May 18th of this year. On Point, by the way, is a radio show. It's a call-in show discussion. Guests that day were Dr. Jill Harkavy-Friedman. She's a psychologist and also the Vice President of Research at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Also on the show, Jacqueline Grimm. She's a high school student who wrote an op-ed that got into USA Today. She said 13 reasons got it wrong. The third guest, Jill Cook. She is the Assistant Director of the American School Counselor Association. I get it, the topic of teen suicide may not be of great interest to you, but I thought I'd mention it, partly because I had a student who, will just leave it at that. More than a few years ago, though, when Jill Cook was not the Assistant Director of the American School Counselors Association, she was a librarian. Actually, she wasn't a real librarian, but she played one, specifically Miss Marion Peru.
No apologies, no explanation. I'll only be in town a short while, and this sounds a wiser role for me.
Will you please make your selections and leave?
Oh, I can.
Well, what do you want to take
The
out?
librarian.
Quiet, please.
You're not listening. Look. Mary. Marbles. 6 Steelies, 8 Aggies, a dozen Pinkies, and one big glossy with a American flag in it. I think I'll drop it.
No!
Madam Librarian. Oh, what can I do? My dear, you can't. You're here. I love you, Madam Librarian. Mary, heaven help us if the library caught on fire and the volunteer homes brigade men had to whisper the news to man. Madam Librarian. Oh, what can I do? My dear.
All right, so I said it was more than a few years ago. I'd alluded earlier to Robert Herrick's poem. It was apropos in the context of the London fire. Watching that clip makes me think it fits here too. It isn't very long. To the Virgins, To Make Much of Time, by Robert Herrick. Gather ye rosebuds while ye may, old time is still a-flying, and this same flower that smiles today, tomorrow will be dying. The glorious lamp of heaven, the sun, the higher he's a-getting, the sooner will his race be run, and nearer he's to setting. That age is best, which is the first, when youth and blood are warmer. But being spent, the worse and worst times still succeed the former. Then be not coy, but use your time, and while ye may, go marry. For having lost but once your prime, you may forever tarry. So, did you use Google at all on Tuesday? If you did, you may have seen the Google Doodle honoring the cricket championships, the ICC. I will admit to not knowing much about cricket. I know our baseball shares some DNA with cricket. Our pitcher is their bowler. The batter with a bat swings at a ball. But the Google Doodle is more than just a picture marking a day or marking a historical figure's birthday. It's a game. If you Google cricket ICC, you'll get a few hits. Some of them will be like me telling, look what Google did, look how cool. But if you go to the return that is Google itself, you can click and play the game. It is big fun. It's addicting. Take a look. You have to keep your mind in it because you can't step out of the batter's box. The next pitch will be coming. And while it isn't hard, the speed of the pitch does vary, and there are curveballs too. And after a while, I think I may have gained at least a tiny bit of understanding about cricket. A home run, or I don't know if it's called a home run, but it's 6 points. I will almost certainly play again. Maybe before I do, I'll look up cricket on Wikipedia and actually know more about the rules. But try out the game. You'll be glad. All right, so a couple of weeks ago, I told you about the PBS documentary, The American Constitution. It's currently in production, and I'd shown you a couple of stills from my time on the set. Well, the director just sent a clip. He called it the first draft, and it's true, this is only using one camera angle. We shot several angles, sometimes close-ups, sometimes this angle, sometimes that, even behind me. But take a look. This is a draft, but take a look.
The opposition was carried largely by people from rural areas who were farmers, they were grist mill owners. Often, when they rose to speak, they were much more eloquent than anyone had reason to expect.
These lawyers and men of learning and moneyed men who talk so finely and gloss over matters so smoothly as to make us poor and illiterate people swallow down the pill, expect to get into Congress themselves. They expect to be the managers of this Constitution and get all the power and all the money into their own hands.
There's just this fear, very much class-based fear of these elites running the show on their behalf and neglecting the ordinary folk.
Sound familiar? If you'd like to see more clips, Google David Garrigus Productions. All right, if it fits, of course, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. And as I made a similar point last month, if you're a mom, happy Father's Day too, because no one became a dad or a mom in a vacuum. As I record this, I don't know the outcome, but I always thought it cool that the U.S. Open, just like Father's Day, ends up on the third Sunday in June. It was just a nice little extra at our house. My mom would make southern fried chicken or steaks, sometimes steaks. She'd always make strawberry shortcake, sometimes angel food cake with strawberries. That was my dad's favorite dessert. And of course, we'd give him his gifts, and then he'd have the whole afternoon to watch the world's best golfers compete on an almost always crazy difficult course. All right, so upcoming this week, tomorrow, Monday, is Juneteenth. Yeah, it's June 19th, but it's a holiday. I know it's an ethnic celebration, but there's good eating to be had. Oh, and tomorrow also will lead to another attempt to live a more spiritual life, because Monday is also Martini Day. Speaking of good eats, Saturday evening Ramadan ends, so our Muslim friends can stop fasting. And the big one this week, affecting everyone worldwide, the solstice is Wednesday morning. Early morning, 24 minutes after midnight morning Eastern Time, the sun stops. Of course, it doesn't exactly stop, but as we revolve around the sun, our tipped axis gets the sun as far north as it's going to get this year, and summer begins. In the southern hemisphere, of course, it's the beginning of winter. Anyway, that's this week. I hope your upcoming week is the best one you've ever had.